1965, the International Maritime Organization adopted the first version of the IMDG Code to reflect the United Nations recommendations on the transportation of dangerous goods as they apply to shipping. Since then, ships have carried dangerous goods at sea safely, day after day, week after week. And those managing their transport from manufacturer to end user have complied with the IMDG Code with safety and efficiency. As a result, the number of emergency incidents arising from the carriage of dangerous goods by sea has been greatly reduced. The IMDG Code continues to be used by governments as the basis for their national regulations, fulfilling their obligations under the relevant SOLAS and MARPOL provisions. As the shipping industry evolves and new products enter the markets, there is a continuing need to update the provisions of the IMDG Code to ensure the transport of these goods with the minimum risk. This program is designed to introduce these changes to those already familiar with the existing IMDG Code. At the same time, it will describe the basic principles of the code used to those new to the transport of dangerous goods by sea. Over the years, the IMDG Code has undergone continuous change and amendment to reflect new United Nations recommendations and provisions, whilst being simplified in use and appearance. The latest edition of the Code continues to provide information and a list of requirements about the transport of dangerous goods by sea in packaged form for use by both shore-based and onboard personnel, as well as reflecting the intermodal harmonization of commodities transshipped by land and air. On this basis, it is a mandatory requirement of the IMDG Code that everyone involved at each stage of the shipping process is fully trained in the handling of dangerous goods and has an appreciation of the potential risks. The code itself is centered around a number of major subjects, which form the basis of safe transport of dangerous goods. These are identification and classification of the goods to be transported, their safe and secure packing, their correct marking and labeling, their handling requirements, and all the necessary accompanying safety information required to deal with the hazards such goods represent in the event of an emergency incident. Before you can use the code volumes, it helps to see where the required information can be found in the two volumes. Let's look at Volume 1 in greater detail. Part 1 will provide you with the general provisions, definitions, and training requirements. In here, you will find all the relevant SOLAS and MARPOL provisions, definitions, units of measurements, and abbreviations relating to the transport of dangerous goods. Part 1 also includes provisions on training, security, and radioactive material. Part 2 contains the classification of dangerous goods in 9 classes, several divisions, and packing groups. Class 1 relates to explosives, which has 6 divisions, represented by 4 labels. Class 2 relates to gases with 3 divisions. Class 3 deals with flammable liquids with their assignment of packing groups. Class 4 covers flammable solids and provides a number of divisions into self-reacting substances, solid desensitized explosives, substances liable to spontaneous combustion, and substances which, on contact with water, emit flammable gases. Class 5 covers oxidizing substances and organic peroxides. Class 6 deals with toxic and infectious substances. Class 7 covers radioactive material. Class 8 relates to corrosive substances. Class 9 covers miscellaneous substances and articles which present a danger but have not been covered under any other classification, and environmentally hazardous substances such as marine pollutants subject to MARPOL Annex II and not included in other classes. Class 9 also includes cargo transport units under fumigation and certain materials carried at elevated temperatures. Part 3 is in Volume 2. Part 4 contains the packing and tank provisions, including intermediate bulk containers, IBCs, and large packagings. Part 5 describes the consignment procedures, including marking and labelling packages, including IBCs, placarding and marking cargo transport units, documentation, and any special provisions. A description of the labels and placards to be used is also given. Part 6 describes the provisions for the construction and testing of packagings, intermediate bulk containers, large packagings, portable tanks, multiple element gas containers, and road tank vehicles. Part 7 lists the provisions concerning transport operations, including stowage, segregation, special provisions in the event of an incident or fire, the transport and packing of cargo transport units, the transport of dangerous goods by barge, the transport of wastes, exemptions, approvals and certificates, along with a list of designated national competent authorities. Volume 2 contains Part 3 of the IMDG Code and the 2 appendices and the index. Part 3 includes the dangerous goods list, special provisions and exceptions. Significantly, Part 3 also relates proper shipping name, or PSN, with the correct technical name of dangerous goods and provides guidance for use with the names found in the index. This will come into good use when working with the volumes, as we will illustrate later. The dangerous goods list is set out in a table of 18 columns, providing all the necessary information at a glance, including UN number, proper shipping name, class, subsidiary risks, packing group, special provisions, limited and accepted quantities, packing, IBC, portable tanks and bulk containers, EMS, stowage and segregation, properties and observations. Appendix A provides in each class a list of generic names and not otherwise specified names for use as proper shipping names. Appendix B provides a glossary of terms. Volume 2 concludes with the alphabetical index of the proper shipping names of dangerous goods, giving their status as marine pollutant and class, together with their UN number. The UN number is significant as it is used as reference when navigating between the various parts of the code. There is also a supplement to the IMDG Code containing the Emergency Procedures, EMS, and the Medical First Aid Guide, MFAG. The supplement also contains the reporting procedures, guidelines for packing cargo transport units, the safe use of pesticides in ships, and the International Code for Safe Carriage of Packaged Irradiated Nuclear Fuel, Plutonium, and High-Level Radioactive Wastes, more commonly known as the INF Code. The supplement also contains an appendix with the resolutions and circulars referred to in the IMDG Code. However, it does not cover solid bulk cargoes. These are covered in a separate book, the International Maritime Solid Bulk Cargoes Code, or IMSBC Code. For easy reference, the IMDG code and its supplement is available on CD-ROM or as Windows-based downloadable software. Now let's see the code in action, starting with the shipper. The shipper must comply with the code to ensure that the goods to be transported are correctly identified and classified with the proper shipping name, marked, packaged, and labeled. Let's look at each of these subjects together with their main implications. Starting with identification and classification. Offering dangerous goods or marine pollutants for transport starts with a written declaration from the shipper that the dangerous goods have been identified, classified, packaged, marked, and labeled in accordance with the relevant national and international regulations. A dangerous or marine pollutant substance is properly identified only if the proper shipping name, the 4-digit UN number, and the packing group for it is declared. Shippers must do this before offering the goods for shipment, and the goods must not be accepted for transport without such a declaration. Declaring the proper shipping name and the UN number allows the immediate identification of any necessary emergency procedures and, in the case of marine pollutants, to assist the master in complying with the reporting requirements of MARPOL. So, it is vital that the declarations prepared by shippers are accurate, because everything that will happen to the cargo from now on is reliant on the information they have provided. And a copy of the dangerous goods note and additional information must be retained for a period of 3 months. Next, shippers are required to ensure that the goods are packaged in accordance with the provisions given in Part 4. Dangerous goods must be labelled correctly, using the internationally agreed labels, indicating the nature of the goods to be carried by their correct colour, class number, and symbol. In addition, the proper shipping name must be marked on the packaging, together with its 4-digit UN number. By law, freight containers, vehicles, and other cargo transporting units carrying dangerous goods must be marked accordingly with the hazards of the goods enclosed. This is done using large labels known as placards, placed on all 4 sides. The class number on the label or placard refers to the hazard of the package or cargo transport unit. Some dangerous goods may also possess more than one hazard, requiring labels or placards for each. For instance, a corrosive substance of Class 8 may also be flammable or toxic. If the packages are loaded in containers or vehicles, this must be done safely in accordance with the International Maritime Organization and the International Labour Organization guidelines. The correct packing, combined with stowage and securing as necessary, should prevent any damage occurring in conditions which may reasonably be expected to arise during a sea voyage. Those responsible for packing the container must fill in the container packing certificate correctly and pack the goods as required by the code. The packing certificate signed, the goods can proceed on their way to the terminal. And whether the goods are in individual packs, containers, or in tanks, the procedure is the same. The goods are now in the hands of the shipping company. The shipping company, together with the port authority, stevedores, and terminal staff, will take over to ensure correct handling of the dangerous cargo in port and on board ship. This includes the required stowage and segregation. Handling has to be correct at all stages of the transport operation. The code spells out how individual substances should be stowed and segregated aboard ship, based on the information given by the shipper. Verifying stowage, using the code, begins with checking the UN number and proper shipping name in the index in Volume 2. Then, using the UN number as reference, consulting Part 3, the dangerous goods list, to check the subsidiary risks, packing group, and instructions, stowage and segregation. The code may specify the on-deck or under-deck or on-deck only stowage and give the segregation method required. A segregation table in Volume 1, Section 7.2, will provide further information. For example, an explosive substance with a Class 1.2 label and a flammable solid with a Class 4 label give us the number 4. And referring to the requirements, we are informed that these goods should be separated longitudinally by an intervening complete compartment. Vertical separation alone does not meet this requirement. For on-deck stowage, this segregation means a distance of at least 24 meters longitudinally. This type of table is, of course, only an aid to stowage and segregation, and the requirements for each substance or article must be obtained from the relevant entry in the dangerous goods list for that substance. Of course, all cargo must be secured properly, and a separate code, the Code of Safe Practice for Cargo Stowage and Securing, should apply in all cases. Backup information about dangerous goods or marine pollutants carried is most important. It must be accurate and complete all the way down the line, so everyone will know what the substance is, how it behaves, what hazard it represents, and what procedures should be followed, particularly in an emergency. For this reason, easy access to shipping documents giving emergency advice, and to the ship's manifest and stowage or bay plan prepared by the shipping company's personnel is vital. By law, it is the master's ultimate responsibility to decide what is to be carried on his ship. He is responsible for the safety of the ship and her crew. Therefore, he must know of any dangerous goods which are part of his cargo. In exercising this responsibility, the master double-checks the prepared list with the IMDG Code. He must be satisfied that these goods have been properly declared, packaged, labelled and stowed, and he must be aware of the specific precautions his officers should take during the voyage, particularly if an emergency were to arise. Whilst at sea, dangerous goods must be inspected regularly. There must be an emergency plan with information available at all times in case an incident develops into a serious accident. Information regarding the emergency procedures for ships carrying dangerous goods and the medical first aid guide for accidents involving dangerous goods must be checked in the code and must be followed correctly. These subjects are dealt with in greater detail in Part 2 of this package. Finally, it's important to be aware of all the requirements in the code and the national regulations in force at your destination port. National regulations often follow a similar format of classification, identification, and marking as found in the IMDG Code, but there can be additional requirements that will need to be adhered to. For example, there are additional hazmat and security requirements when shipping to or from the United States, as laid out in the Code of Federal Regulation, Title 49, Parts 100 to 185, more commonly known as 49 CFR. In particular, 49 CFR authorizes the offering of transportation to, from, or within the United States in accordance with the IMDG Code provisions, but only as long as goods comply with the limitations and exceptions stated in sections 171.22, 171.23, and 171.25. Although there is no room for complacency, experience shows that by following the Code's provisions and by the exercise of good stevedoring and seaman-like practices, packaged goods can be carried by sea without incident, whatever their classification. Always be aware of the hazards present in the cargo. Apply vigilance and common sense, as well as your knowledge obtained during training. All this is in the interest of transporting dangerous goods and marine pollutants safely.